परचम हुसैन जाना तुरा दारा जितन लेती है शायद इंतहा हमसे कि कातिल मांगता है जिंदगी हमसे ये जा हमसे विला होगी न दिल से कम हुसैन जाना तुरा दारा कहानी असर हाजिर की रकम नौशाद ने की है सुनो लब्बैक।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الأول بلا أول كان قبله والآخر بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. ابتدع بقدرته الخلق ابتداعا واخترعهم على مشيته اختراعا ثم سلك بهم طريق إرادته وبعثهم في سبيل محبته لا يملكون تأخيرا عما قدمهم إليه ولا يستطيعون تقدما إلى ما أخرهم عنه. تقدست أسماؤه وتظاهرت آلاؤه لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. ثم شرائف صلواته ونوامي بركاته على عبده ورسوله الخاتم لما سبق والفاتح لمن غلق والمعلن الحق بالحق الدافع جيشات الأباطيل والدامغ صولات الأضاليل العبد المؤيد والمنصور المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد الذي بلغ الرسالة صادعا بها وحمل على المحجة دالا عليها وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا ولا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته في العالمين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه فداء واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم وجاحدي مناقبهم ومنكري فضائلهم من الآن إلى أبد الآبدين. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الشريف. I extend to you my greetings of peace. May Allah bless you and keep you well. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah help us nurture the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in our hearts, and may Allah help us and enable us to follow his light and follow his example, and may Allah help us nurture the love and devotion for the Imam of the age, salamullahi alayhi, in our hearts. Our discourse with regard to the topic of Taqlid continues. Please listen and watch the previous lectures on this topic. Especially so, remember what is the definition of Taqlid, and that we have reached a certain stage in our discourse with regard to Taqlid. The first and foremost and the most important argument for the validity of Taqlid is the rational justification of Taqlid. And this rational justification rests on three irrational principles, irrational premises. The first premise is that you, as a common Shia, cannot understand the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. This first premise, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, will be discussed and analyzed in great detail in the future. The second premise is as follows. It is the conduct of all sane and rational people. It is the dictation of common sense that when you do not know something, you refer to a person who knows that matter, and this is Taqlid. The deliberation of an ignorant man with a knowledgeable person. We talked about this premise in detail in the previous lectures, and I'm not going to repeat. The third premise, which is the completion of the rational justification of Taqlid, is that Taqlid was prevalent and practiced widely in the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salam. Shia used to follow their scholars in the conduct of Taqlid and the institution of Taqlid in the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salam. This is the third premise of this argument for Taqlid, and we are discussing this third premise. Although scholars of ijtihad and jurists who want to justify Taqlid state time and again that at the time of the holy Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam, in the eras of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the following 2 centuries after his demise, during the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salams, Shia commonly practiced the institution of Taqlid. Shia commonly followed their ulama and their ijtihad, and they were emulating them and imitating them in the practice of Taqlid. Although they mention this, they also contradict themselves clearly when they admit in their books repeatedly that there was no Taqlid at the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salam. So this third premise of Taqlid's rational justification is a premise that has been falsified by any great number of mujtahideen and their very famous works and their famous books. They have mentioned that at the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salam, the common Shia who did not have access to a specific Imam of his time, he would not do Taqlid of Shia scholars. Rather, such a person, even if he was a Persian and an Arab, a Kurdish Shia, or if he were an Arab who did not have access to the holy Imam alayhi salam, he would follow the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that were conveyed to him, that were brought to him, that were made accessible and available to him by Shia scholars. So, and this was how Shia used to gain knowledge of the rulings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam with regard to halal and haram. It's worth noting that this conduct to learn ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam and then practice per the dictum of those ahadith, which was admittedly by mujtahideen, the conduct of the Shia at the times of the Imams alayhim salam, can be practiced today. And whether this practice is possible or impossible today, and I will argue inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala that this is very doable, and there is nothing impossible about it, but rather this is the rational, the appropriate, and the required way as demanded by Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam. We will discuss this inshallah in the coming lectures in the future. But let's go to the texts of the mujtahideen and their admissions and their acknowledgements that there was no taqlid at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam. And I cannot sufficiently outline the importance of these acknowledgements and these admissions. Please pay attention. The foremost important argument for the validity of taqlid is the rational justification of taqlid, which is called the conduct of the sane people, sira uqala, the conduct of intelligent people, the conduct of people endowed with common sense. And this argument rests upon this third principle, this third premise, which states that taqlid was prevalent at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam and practiced by the Shia. Now, if a great number of grand mujtahideen, they have acknowledged that there was no such practice, and at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam, the conduct of Shia was to act according to ahadith, then the most important argument for the validity of taqlid is no longer defensible, and it fails to prove its objective, which is taqlid, because it becomes very clear that at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wassalam, there was no taqlid. Rather, Shia used to practice according to ahadith. And in order for the sira of uqala, according to for the argument of the rational justification of taqlid, in order to be sound, this conduct of sane people have to have been practiced at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam and have to have been approved by the Imams alayhim salam. I hope my discussion is clear to you. So let's go to the books of mujtahideen, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and see how these grand mujtahideen, how these important mujtahideen, they have acknowledged that there was no taqlid at the time of the holy Imams alayhim salam. The book in front of you is Kifayatul Usul, and I apologize that I have to show you texts that are in Arabic, and that is because my hands are tied, and I cannot present to you texts that are in English. These books, which are books that study taqlid in profundity, in great detail, they have not been translated into English, and they are only available in Arabic. So I have no choice. And inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, I hope that you would benefit from my translation, and at any time, any person who has any question, he may write it in. During the live lecture, he should write it in the comments, and at the end of this lecture, I will answer to those criticisms and those questions and those comments. And if any one of you believes that I am inaccurately translating anything, then please challenge me, and please ask your scholars to challenge me. That those who promote Taqlid in the English-speaking world, there are many Shia scholars. That is one of their very important principles that they fiercely and vehemently defend, and that is marji'iyya, that is Taqlid. So they should challenge me and question my arguments. Where did I go wrong? And inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, you will find that they will, if you pay attention to details. If you do not pay attention to details, then of course, then you will miss the points. If you pay attention to details, you will find that they cannot challenge me. And what I'm presenting to you are all sound and all correct and all valid. The book of Kifayatul Usul by the famed Mujtahid Muhammad Kazim al-Khurasani. This book is the central book upon the axis, around the axis of which revolve all of lectures of Kharij. All Mujtahideen who teach Kharij of Usul, of principles of fiqh, they base all of their lectures upon the content and upon the principles and upon the sequence of discussions by this very famed and respected scholar, Muhammad Kazim al-Khurasani. So in this book, which is published by Mu'assisatu Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, at page number 299, goes akhun as follows. لا يذهب عليك. You should pay attention. You should not miss this point. أنه ليس حال الرواة في الصدر الأول في نقل ما تحملوا من النبي صلى الله عليه وآله أو الإمام عليه السلام من الأحكام إلى الأنام إلا كحال نقلة الفتاوى إلى العوام. How did the Shia acquire knowledge of the rulings of halal and haram at the times of the holy Imams عليهم السلام? How did they do that? When we know not all Shia had direct access to a specific Imam. The answer that Akhun presents to you. Akhun says that, look, today we have all these mid-level scholars and low-level scholars in different towns and in different villages and different localities whose job is, whose profession is, whose expertise is that they narrate fatwa, that they narrate verdicts of maraji to the common Shia. So in different villages, in different towns, there are masajid, there are mosques, there are schools where scholars, they narrate and they teach and they make available the verdicts of scholars, the fatwa of scholars. The exact same thing happened at the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salam. At that time, the narrators of ahadith, those who narrated ahadith, they performed the same task that scholars, mid-level scholars and low-level scholars perform today. Today, these scholars narrate and teach verdicts and opinions of jurists. At the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam, narrators of ahadith in different tribes and different towns and different locations, they used to narrate and teach and explain and convey and deliver the sayings of the noble Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam to their audience who were the common Shia. So, the Shia used to receive and used to listen to and used to learn the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam from these narrators of ahadith and would act according to those ahadith. Same way today, Shia scholars narrate fatwa, verdicts and opinions of scholars, of jurists to Shia populations in different countries and different cities and in different towns. And the Shia learn these verdicts and act according to those verdicts. Now, these narrators of fatwa, these mid-level scholars who teach you the fatwa, who convey the fatwa to you, and if you have any doubts, and if you have any ambiguities with regard to a certain fatwa verdict, he will further explain that fatwa to you. These people, they do not impose their own opinions upon you. They do not convey their own verdicts to you. They merely mirror, they merely narrate the verdicts of the jurists who are in Qom or Najaf to you. So in no way you are doing taqlid of the scholar who lives in your town and who happens to have explained to you or conveyed to you a fatwa from a particular marja. Likewise, at the times of the holy Imams والسلام, narrators of ahadith were merely narrators or merely teachers. They would narrate, they would convey ahadith, and if need be, they would explain and they would elaborate the meaning of ahadith. However, people practiced according to ahadith and followed the words of the noble Imams والسلام. And they did not do taqlid of these individuals. Therefore, this assertion and this very clear statement by Al-Akhund Al-Khurasani is a very indicative and a very expressive admission by this grand and respected scholar that at the times of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and at the era of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam, taqlid was alien to the Shia population, and Shia practiced only according to ahadith, and this is very clear to you. The book of Kifaya, which I just showed you this passage from it, was written only 110 years ago. However, this book has been fortunate to have hundreds of commentaries, hundreds of books of exegeses. One of the most respected and renowned exegeses of Kifayatul Usul is Inayatul Usul by As-Sayyid Murtada Al-Firuzabadi rahimahullah, who was one of very respected scholars and researchers in the seminary in Najaf, and later he moved to Qom and lived in Qom, and he was very respected, and his book is considered one of the most profound books of exegesis on Kifaya. This is volume number 3 of Inayatul Usul, published in Al-Najaf Al-Ashraf, page number 224. The area that I've highlighted is the explanation of the words I just narrated to you from Al-Akhund, from Kifaya. And in this passage, Al-Firuzabadi mentions that those people, حال الرواة في صدر الإسلام كحال نقلة الفتاوى إلى العوام، أي كحال المرشدين إلى ما يجهله الناس لا كحال المجتهدين. Clearly elaborates that the narrators of hadith at the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam were not mujtahid. They would not impose their own opinions, their own verdicts as laws of Islam, as jurisprudence of Islam upon the Shia. Rather, they were merely narrators and explainers and conveyors of the words of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam to the Shia. In other words, there was no taqlid. Again, Akhund Khurasani in Kifayatul Usul, towards the end of Kifaya, when he discusses whether in marja it's compulsory to be alive, whether it is required for the marja to be a living person. In other words, whether it's permissible to continue to follow a mujtahid who has passed on, who was diseased. When he discusses this topic, he mentions an argument. he quotes an argument by those scholars who have argued that it is permissible, that it's allowed in Shia Islam to follow a mujtahid who has passed on. That it is permissible to follow to keep following, to remain in the taqlid of a marja who has passed away. What is that argument that Akhund narrates? That argument goes as follows. We know this argument, once again, it states that it's permissible, it's okay to remain in the bounds of taqlid of a mujtahid who has passed away. This argument goes as follows. It was the conduct of the Shia at the times of the noble Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam. It was customary for the common Shia at the times of the noble Imams alayhimus salam that when they were doing taqlid of a specific person and that person would die, would pass away, that they would not abandon his taqlid. Shia would continue to follow the taqlid of that person. Therefore, we infer from this custom, from this conduct of the Shia, that such a practice, namely to keep following a person who has passed away, keep following him in the custom of taqlid, that this conduct we infer is legitimate and is valid because this conduct was practiced in the view of the noble Imams alayhimus salam and those infallible deputies of the Creator alayhimus salatu wassalam. They did not discourage this and they did not disapprove this conduct. Akhund replies, this view argues for the validity of doing taqlid of a person who has passed away. The reply of Akhund. Akhund says that you're totally wrong. There is no such conduct of the Shia at the times of the noble Imams alayhimus salam. There was no such custom that Shia doing taqlid. There was no taqlid. At the times of the noble Imams alayhimus salatu wasalam, Shia used to follow the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And those individuals that you have suggested that Shia were following them as in the institution of taqlid, they were merely narrators of ahadith. They would narrate ahadith for the common Shia, and the common Shia, without regard to their personal opinions of those narrators, without any consideration for the personal views of those people who were narrating ahadith, they would merely and solely practice according to those ahadith. Therefore, the practice of the Shia at the times of the noble Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam is totally alien and totally separate from the institution of taqlid, and it has nothing to do with taqlid. Therefore, this is one more admission by Akhund that states that there was no taqlid at the time of the noble Imams alayhimus salam. He states this towards the end of Kifayatul Usul. This is Kifaya, published by Mu'assisatu Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in Beirut in 1429, 2008. Here we go, page 479. ومنها دعوى السيرة على البقاء فإن المعلوم من أصحاب my apologies فإن المعلوم من أصحاب الأئمة عليهم السلام عدم رجوعهم أما أخذوه تقليدا بعد موت المفتي. The argument promoting the legality of remaining on the taqlid of a person who has passed away. We know at the times of the holy Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam, the companions of the Imams alayhimus salatu wassalam, if they did taqlid of a person, when that person died, they would not abandon his taqlid. If the mufti, that jurist, died, they would not abandon his taqlid. Akhund replies, وَفِيهِ This is questionable, this is refutable, this is unacceptable. مَنْعُ السِّيرَةِ فِيمَا هُوَ مَحَلُّ الْكَلَامِ مَنْعُ السِّيرَةِ There is no such conduct of taqlid at the time of the holy Imams alayhimus salam. There is no such conduct. There is no such custom amongst Shia. وأصحابهم عليهم السلام إنما لم يرجعوا عما أخذوه من الأحكام لأجل لأنهم غالبا إنما كانوا يأخذونها ممن ينقلها عنهم عليهم السلام بلا واسطة أحد أو معها دون دخل رأي الناقل فيه أصلا وهو ليس بتقليد. The companions of the Imams عليهم الصلاة والسلام, the contemporary Shia who were contemporary to the holy Imams عليهم الصلاة والسلام, they would gain knowledge of rulings of Islam from those individuals who themselves had heard from the Imams عليهم السلام. Or sometimes they had not heard directly the Imams عليهم السلام. They were narrating another reliable person who had heard the Imam عليه الصلاة والسلام. At any rate, there was no consideration for the personal view of the narrator. The Shia were merely acting according to ahadith. The Shia were merely following ahadith. And that individual in question that has passed away, may Allah bless his soul, he was merely a narrator. His own personal views had no regard in the eyes of the Shia at the time. وَهُوَ لَيْسَ بِتَقْلِيد, and such a conduct is not taqlid at all. There's such a taqlid. Because a person is narrating a hadith to you and you are acting per a hadith, and this is not taqlid. So this is another admission by this grand mujtahid and respected mujtahid that there was no taqlid at the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam. Let me show you another book. May Allah bless you all. نهاية الدراية في شرح الكفاية by Muhammad Hussein al-Gharawi al-Isfahani. Muhammad Hussein al-Gharawi al-Isfahani is the teacher of the generation of scholars who were contemporaneous with Sayyid Abu al-Qasim al-Khuwi. And Sayyid Abu al-Qasim al-Khuwi died about 28 years ago in Najaf al-Iraq. And Muhammad Hussein al-Najafi is of the generation of the students of Al-Akhund al-Khurasani. And he is very respected for his very profound views and very intricate writings and commentaries on various sciences. This is his book, Nihayat al-Diraya, that pertains to the discipline of principles of jurisprudence known as Usul al-Fiqh. Volume number 3, published by Sayyid al-Shuhada Publications in Qom. Here we go, page 466. وَأَمَّا الْأَخْبَارُ الدَّالَّةِ. I'm going to read to you the highlighted area first. I'll explain it to you and then I'm going to read the text. He says the best argument that mujtahideen have for the validity of taqlid as far as hadith go. The best argument based on hadith is the arguments that stem from a hadith that mention ifta, fatwa. Let me explain this. There are certain ahadith that Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam have stated that such a person should give fatwa. That you so and so should give fatwa. You should do ifta, fatwa. So when we are talking about taqlid and we want to prove taqlid on the basis of hadith, so the best, the strongest, the most convincing proofs of taqlid based on hadith are those proofs that are, as the hadith I mentioned, that carry the command of giving fatwa. That Imam alayhi salam said to such a person that you should give fatwa. So it follows that Imam alayhi salam, if he said that you should give fatwa, it's only logical, it's only rational to assume that his fatwa would be binding. His fatwa, his verdicts would have a legal weight. It's fatwa is for somebody. If he's giving fatwa, then people following him. Therefore, these ahadith prove the validity of ijtihad, prove the validity of taqlid, and it proves the validity that words of a marja', of a mujtahid, are legally binding for common Shia. And common Shia are bound and obligated to follow those words. And thus, the institution of taqlid is proved according to ahadith. So, as Sheikh Muhammad Hussein al-Isfahani goes as follows: the best and the most convincing set of proofs based on taqlid are those ahadith that carry the term ifta, the term fatwa, command to give fatwa. You should give fatwa. Okay. However, these are the best set of hadith. However, these are not my words. I'm still quoting and explaining Muhammad Hussein al-Isfahani. He says, however, there's a great confusion and misunderstanding and mix-up in this argument, because fatwa at the time of the holy Imams ﷺ did not carry the same meaning it carries today. Let me explain something to you. Words change through history. As ages go, words get new meanings. For instance, the word salah, as-salah, which means prayers, specific prayers. When we say the word as-salah in Islam, we mean a specific acts of specific rituals of prayers and devotion and expression of devotion and worship towards Allah. It starts with Takbiratul Ihram, Allahu Akbar, followed by Surah Al-Fatiha, and then another surah, and then Ruku, Sujud, and ends with Salam. So we know that. However, this is not the lexical meaning of the word as-salah. Salah originally meant prayers. But after Islam, after the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam introduced Quran and introduced his Sharia, this word was used so extensively with regard to this specific ritual of worship that its original meaning is almost abandoned, almost forgotten. Now, if we say salah, we just don't mean any prayer. We mean a specific form with specific ritual, which has specific actions defined within the Sharia. Like say adhan in Islam. Adhan means to proclaim, to announce. However, now when we say adhan, commonly it's understood adhan is a specific call to prayers that we say it in Islamic countries. You could hear it from loudspeakers, from the masajid, from the mosques. So words change throughout history. One of those words that have changed with the passage of time is the term of fatwa. Fatwa at the time of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fatwa at the time of the holy Imams alayhimussalatu wasalam, meant explanation, meant to explain something, to elucidate something. However, today it means something else. In our age, for many centuries now, it has gained a new meaning. Fatwa is just not any explanation. Fatwa may not be an explanation. Fatwa today, and the terminology of Muslims, and for many centuries, means the consequence, the result, the conclusion of a mujtahid's toil of ijtihad, a mujtahid's juristic calculations and his inference from the sources of Islamic jurisprudence. And then when he comes to the conclusion and he articulates the conclusion of all his juristic calculations and he issues a binding verdict, that is called fatwa. That is called fatwa. This fatwa may state that such an action is obligatory, or such an action is void, or such an action is forbidden, or such an action is recommended, or it is frowned upon. However, this fatwa is just not any statement. It has to be issued by a mujtahid, and it has to be legally binding, and it has to be the conclusion of all his the efforts and toils that he undertakes in order to infer that matter from his juristic sources. That is called fatwa. So today we understand a totally different thing from the fatwa, but that is not how it was used in Quran, and that's not how it was used in the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam. In the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salam, fatwa simply meant to explain. And the many, about 7 different places in the noble Quran, this term fatwa, yastaftunaka, qulillahu yuftikum, has been explained, has been mentioned. And in none of those areas, ijtihad and giving a verdict per ijtihad would make any sense. Allah yuftikum, Allah is giving fatwa. Allah is not a mujtahid. Allah does not need to undertake any toils in order to reach a conclusion. He does not have to infer anything. Everything is self-evidently clear to him. And he states and he commands, but he does not give you a fatwa that what we consider fatwa today, because he's not simply a mujtahid, he's not a jurist. In many places in the noble Quran, you see Allah yuftikum. So, therefore, Allah yuftikum means Allah is merely explaining. So now I come back to the explanation of Shaykh Muhammad Hussein Isfahani. He says that the best tool, that the sharpest knife that you have in your drawer, in order to prove the legality of taqlid according to ahadith, are those ahadith that carry the command to give fatwa. You, such and such person, give fatwa. And this you use to prove taqlid. Because you say, okay, if Imam alayhi salam said to Aban ibn Taqlid, ijlis fil masjidi wafti lin nas, go sit in the masjid and give fatwa to the people, it's only rational to assume, and it very clearly, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to infer that his fatwa is not, he's not commanded to give fatwa just for the practice of giving fatwa. Rather, because people have to accept his fatwa and act according to it. So therefore, taqlid is proven per this hadith at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam. Shaykh Muhammad Hussein Isfahani says, no, that's not true, that's not correct. Because fatwa has a literal meaning at those times. The Imams alayhim salatu wassalam use them in literal meaning. So he says, go explain, go reply to people. People are asking questions, reply to them. And explanation at those times. Fatwa at that time, at the time of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wassalam, were not according to ijtihad. Rather, they were, explanations were conducted by narrating a hadith. Fatwas were issued by narrating a hadith, by conveying a hadith, by delivering hadith and the sayings of the noble Imams alayhim salatu wassalam. And not only that, all ahkam, all rulings of Islam with regard to halal and haram, what is permissible and what's not permissible, were conveyed through narration of a hadith, through narrating hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam. And this is, of course, an admission by this grand mujtahid, this very lofty mujtahid, that Shias acted per ahadith at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wasalam. They did not do taqlid. Okay. وأما الأخبار الدالة على جواز الإفتاء والاستفتاء, those ahadith which imply that it's permissible to give fatwa and to seek fatwa. Ifta means to give fatwa, and istifta means to seek fatwa. Those ahadith which imply the permissibility of issuing fatwa and seeking fatwa, فهي وإن كانت أحسن ما في الباب. These set of ahadith, although they're the best tool that we have in order to prove the validity of the practice of taqlid, although this is the best we got. However, إلا أن الإفتاء حيث كان في الصدر الأول بنقل الخبر وكان نشر الأحكام بنقل الأخبار والآثار. However, ifta at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam, in those eras, in the early centuries of Islam, amongst the Shia, ifta, how was ifta carried out? بنقل الخبر. Ifta explanation was carried out through narration of hadith. Verdicts were made available to people by narrating hadith. وكان نشر الأحكام, and the promulgation and the spreading of rulings in the times of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the times of the holy Imams alayhi salatu wasallam, was through narration of akhbar, hadith, athar, hadith. Promulgation and spreading the laws of halal and haram was conducted through narration and explanation and spreading the ahadith of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. لا بأعمال الرأي والنظر, not through ijtihad. أعمال الرأي والنظر, not through ijtihad, not through juristic means that you calculate something and then you deliver the consequence, the conclusion of your calculations. That was not the case at the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salam. Okay, so this is another very important admission by this very grand scholar that there was no taqlid at the times of the holy Imams alayhim as-salatu was-salam, and the common Shia used to gain knowledge and acquire understanding of the rulings of what to do and not, and how to do and what not to do, through hearing a hadith and listening to hadith and learning hadith. This is the book of lectures of Muhammad Hassan al-Shirazi. Muhammad Hassan al-Shirazi, he is the Mujaddid al-Shirazi, or he's Hassan Shirazi. Now I'm getting doubts. He's Hassan Shirazi or Muhammad Hassan al-Shirazi. At any rate, he is called al-Mujaddid al-Shirazi, and he is a scholar who became the grand marja of Shia after the demise of Murtada al-Ansari, and that was towards the 1880s, 1890s at that time. Over a century and a quarter ago, he became the marja, and he is very well known and known for moving from Najaf to Samarra. And there are different stories why he moved and why he abandoned Najaf al-Ashraf and moved in Samarra. And he is known for his verdict to forbid tobacco, or his fatwa of tobacco. He's known for that. And he's very respected for his very profound lectures and profound for his profundity in the sciences of fiqh and usul. And many maraji, I've heard them, they respect him greatly for this matter. At any rate, this is his book of lectures. Volume number 4, that this was compiled by his student, Al-Mullah Ali Al-Ruzdari. Published by Muassisatu Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam, run by the office of Sistani. Here at page number 278, page number 278 of volume number 4 of this book, I've highlighted the area that I intend to read to you. أن المتعارف في ذلك الزمان أن كل من يفتي بشيء كان إفتاؤه بنقل الحديث الوارد في الواقعة المسؤول عنها. What was customary? What was the prevalent conduct of the Shia at the times of the noble Imams alayhim salatu wassalam is that any person who wanted to issue a verdict, now a jurist wants to issue a verdict, he issues his opinion. He says this is halal, this is haram, this is so and so, right? At the time of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wassalam, that was not the case. You did not express your opinion. Whoever wanted to issue a verdict with regard to a topic, كان إفتاؤه بنقل الحديث الوارد في الواقعة المسؤول عنها. His issuance of verdict was the narration of a hadith that pertained to the topic that was in question. In other words, let me repeat it again. It was customary at the times of the noble Imams alayhim salatu wassalam that if you had to explain a verdict with regard to a certain action, whether it's permissible, whether it's forbidden, where it's obligatory, you would narrate a hadith that was pertinent to that question at hand. Narration of hadith. وكان المستفتي عن شيء إنما يرجع إلى المفتي لأجل استعلام ما عنده من الحديث في الواقعة المجهولة الحكم. And if you were a common Shia, and if you wanted to inquire the ruling of Islam with regard to a certain topic, and you would go to a knowledgeable person, it was your intention, what was customary at the times of the holy Imams alayhim salam, it was your intention to go to that knowledgeable person in order to learn about the hadith that pertain to that question. So there was no following of opinions. There was no consideration for what's a person's personal opinion, what is his own conclusion with regard to different matters. So you could follow that opinion, not the words of a hadith. No. At the times of the holy Imams alayhim salatu wasalam, you refer to scholars in order to learn the hadith and hear the hadith and listen to the hadith. And if you had any ambiguities, ask questions, what the hadith meant. But regardless of all of that, what was legal, what was practiced, and what was common amongst Shia was the practice of honoring hadith and acting according to ahadith. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum al-sharif. I greatly value your viewership and your attendance to this lecture. May Allah bless you all. May Allah keep you well. Let me go to your questions now. And I urge you to challenge me with regard to the topic of my discussion and ask and criticize and express your views so we could have a lively debate. I start with YouTube. Okay. SA goes, what is the literal meaning of taqlid? The literal meaning of taqlid is to throw a necklace or a collar around your neck, like an animal collar that you put on your dog or you put on your cattle, that on your neck, or you put a necklace around your neck. And that's the also literal meaning of taqlid is to follow someone else. Follow someone else without knowing the wisdom of that action, without knowing you do just because somebody else did this. Also, taqlid, the literal meaning of taqlid also means to give responsibility to another person. For instance, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qallada imamata Ali alayhi salam yawm al-Ghadir. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam transferred the responsibility of imama to Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam on the day of Ghadir. Okay. And what is supposed to happen if a muqallid does not obey the fatwa of a marja? What does it happen? The sky comes down crashing. That's well, okay. If we consider taqlid obligatory, then of course, if you do not do taqlid, then how do you know what's halal and haram? That is the question, right? That is, if we consider taqlid a valid way. And for my stance, what happens if you do, or if you do not do taqlid? It's good. You don't do taqlid, I would say, right? And if someone is muqallid and he knows that this fatwa of the marja makes no sense, so you should ask those for people who promote taqlid, right? I am against taqlid, so you cannot. Those are the questions that I ask. So how do you follow something that you do not know the validity thereof? You do not know the wisdom thereof. You do not know why you're following the words of this person. So those are the questions that I raise, right? So those are not questions for me to answer. Those are questions for those scholars who promote taqlid for them to answer. And then Farwa Mehdi goes, great lecture. Thanks for all your time for us. May Allah bless you. MA goes, please also series on Tawheed. Come on. You just pay attention to my lecture and ask questions with regard to my lecture. What do you think of fiqh as-sadiq? He explains everything. Hadith. No. No. Fiqh as-sadiq of Sayyid Sadiq Rouhani? No. All mujtahideen. I shouldn't generalize like that, but most mujtahideen, like Sayyid Sadiq al-Ruhani, they are incapable because they do not spend their time learning hadith and teaching hadith and studying hadith. They are incapable of understanding hadith properly. So Fiqh al-Sadiq is another book like that, a book of opinions, book of theories, and not explanation of hadith. Okay, so that was the questions that you had in YouTube. Is there any narrations against taqlid of scholars? Yes, there is. Inshallah, we'll come to the... Right now, we are not at that stage. So this discussion of taqlid has to follow a logical course. So first we will discuss the rational proofs of taqlid, then proofs of taqlid based on Quran, and then proofs of taqlid based on Sunnah, on Hadith. And then after refuting all of that, we'll bring, inshallah, what are our proofs for not doing taqlid. So first you see what this is mujtahid, right? This is mujtahid. He says doing taqlid. What are your proofs? So I'm going to listen to his proofs, and then I'm going to negate them and refute them. And then I'll present my proofs that why you shouldn't do taqlid, but we are not there yet. Hamid Muhammadi, yes. Okay. Let's see. So Hussein Ali says, is there any narration against doing taqlid of scholars? So I mentioned that. May Allah bless you and protect you and all you do. Thank you. Salam, Shaykh. Why did you give up your amama? See, the turban is mustahab, sunnah. But that's not the only headgear Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the holy imams alayhi salam used to wear. They also used to wear just a piece of fabric over their head, just a piece of cloth over their head, a covering, and also caps, different kinds of caps, right? So that is not the only thing. And with regard to the rest of the dress and attire, that today it's the conduct of scholars that they wear, they are not sunnah. They're not part of the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. So if your question is why I gave up the amama only, I did not give up only amama only. I gave up amama and the rest of the gear that scholars wear today. Because this combination, that amama, the turban, and the rest of the gear, that doesn't have any religious basis. Amama has, but the rest do not have any religious basis. So that is not sunnah. It was just just something permissible that you can do. And because of my objections to the present day scholarship, Shia scholarship, Shia clerical establishment, I do not wear that anymore because I consider the Shia scholarship and Shia the clerical establishment as deviated from the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam, and I see them making religion a tool for their own worldly gains, and I do not see in them loyalty towards Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, and I do not see any serious in them in defending this madhab. So their foremost aspiration seems to me that their own position, to safeguard their own position and their own personal interests. And Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam does not even come second or third in the list of their important things to do in life. Therefore, I see them as great frauds, really, and I don't want to be like them, and I don't want to be seen like them, and I don't want to be considered one of them, and I don't want to. And I came to this conclusion, painful conclusion, after decades. Not easy. So it was, and I couldn't believe I always thought that there are a lot of good people, right, among Shia scholars, but that That's not true. That is not true. The vast majority, the great majority, I cannot concur with them. And the direction that the Shia religious leadership is leading Shias towards too is not faithful to the Shia cause, to the Shia nation, to the Shia religion, to the madhab of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. So therefore, I totally reject, and in so many different ways and at so many different levels, I find their approach, their methodology, their ideology, their beliefs, their methods, everything at every level. I have difference of opinion with them. So I'm not one of them. I disdain them and I disapprove of them. And therefore, why should I something that doesn't have religious basis in the first place, that dress, that attire? Why should I try to present myself as one of them, right? And Imams alayhim as-salatu was have commanded us to wear the best dress of your time. The best dress of your time. The best dress of my time, shirt, coat, a tie. I don't wear tie right now because a tie is an act of ornament and we are mourning. And I'm mourning for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So therefore, right now, in the month of Muharram, I did not wear, although you can wear a black tie in order to mourn. But because it's an act of ornament and beautification, therefore I didn't wear tie in the month of Muharram and Safar. So let's go. Your questions. Okay, may Allah bless you all. Thank you. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
حسین جانم حسین جانم حسین جانم میشه بلبم نام تو باشم